Captain Ethan Mitchell stared at the main view screen with hollow eyes. The stars looked the same as always, cold points of light against the endless black. But everything else had changed. 3 months ago, Earth had been free. Now it was just another conquered world in the growing Zexian Empire. "Signal from Mars colony has gone dark, sir," said Lieutenant Olivia Garcia. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly over her tactical console. That was the last human military frequency still broadcasting. Ethan nodded slowly. The USS Defiant had been testing its experimental stealth systems in the Kuiper Belt when the Zexian warships first appeared. By the time they received the emergency recall, Earth's orbital defenses had already fallen. They'd pushed the engines beyond safety limits trying to get back in time to help, but they were too late. Always too late. "Any response to our encrypted hails?" Ethan asked. Communications Officer Alan Wright shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. If anyone's still out there, they're not answering." The bridge fell silent. The Defiant was now officially the last military ship of Earth still free and operational. One ship against an empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. "Options?" Ethan finally asked, looking around at the 7 officers who made up his bridge. Crew, Chief Engineer Lisa Crawford spoke first. "We could try to reach Alpha Centauri. The colony there is small enough that the Zexians might have overlooked it." "To do what?" Security Chief Maya Bennett challenged. "Hide? Wait for them to find us. The Centauri defense grid wouldn't last 5 minutes against a single Zexian cruiser." "We could surrender," offered Lieutenant Commander Paul Hudson quietly. As second in command, he felt obligated to put all options on the table. "Request terms to ensure the safety of Earth's remaining population." Ethan turned to the view screen again, zooming in on the blue marble that was their home world. Zexian ships swarmed around it like insects, their curved, organic-looking hulls eerily beautiful against Earth's blue atmosphere. "The Zexians don't take surrenders," he said flatly. "They take resources, planets, people. Everything they touch becomes theirs. I won't give them our ship too." "Then we fight," Garcia said. It wasn't a question. Ethan looked at her. Young, brilliant and fierce. In another time she would have risen through the ranks to command her own vessel. Now she might never get the chance. "Yes, Lieutenant, we fight. But not like they expect us to." He walked to the central holotable and activated it with a wave of his hand. A 3-dimensional map of the solar system appeared, with Zexian positions marked in red. There were hundreds of them. "We can't win a direct battle," Ethan continued. "But the Defiant was built for something else. Before all this happened, we were testing new technology, phase-shifting drive systems, advanced stealth capabilities, weapons that could penetrate any known shields. We're not just a warship, we're a ghost." He looked around at his crew. "I'm not ordering anyone to join this fight. The odds are, well, there are no odds. By all rational calculation, we've already lost. If anyone wants to take a shuttle and try to build a new life somewhere far from here, speak now." No one moved. No one spoke. Ethan nodded, something tight in his chest easing slightly. "Then let's get to work. Lisa, I need to know everything the phase shift drive can do. Alan, start monitoring their communications. I want to know their patrol schedules, command structures, everything. Maya, review our weapons loadout and figure out how to make every torpedo count. Olivia, find me their blind spots." As the crew broke into action, Ethan felt a presence beside him. It was Dr. Kevin Frost, the ship's chief medical officer and scientific advisor. "This is suicide, you know," Frost said quietly, so only Ethan could hear. "Probably. But you're doing it anyway." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Do you have a better idea?" Frost shook his head. "No, but I do have something that might help." He placed a small data chip on the holotable. "Before the invasion, I was consulting on a classified project. We found something in the ice on Europa, something old, alien but not Zexian." Ethan picked up the chip. "What is it?" "Technology beyond anything we've seen, beyond what even the Zexians have. The project lead called it precursor tech. If we can understand it, adapt it, we might have a chance," Ethan finished. A small one. Ethan slid the chip into his pocket. I'll take it. 3 hours later, the Defiant hovered at the edge of the solar system. Lisa Crawford had modified the phase shift drive according to Ethan's specifications. It wouldn't let them travel faster than light. That still required conventional jump drives, but it would make them nearly invisible to Zexian sensors. Phase shift active, Lisa reported from engineering. We're running at 87% efficiency, not perfect, but it should work. Zexian patrol routes mapped, added Lieutenant Garcia. I've identified 3 blind spots where their coverage is minimal. Ethan studied the tactical display. Good work. Now we need intelligence. Alan, you mentioned earlier that you were picking up unusual communication patterns near Europa. Yes, sir. It's faint, but there's definitely something there. It could be survivors, or a trap, Security Chief Bennett pointed out. Either way, it's our first target, Ethan decided. If there are survivors, we help them. If it's a trap, we spring it on our terms and take a few Zexians with us. He turned to the helm. Lieutenant Sampson, set course for Europa. Use the asteroid. Belt for cover as much as possible. Course set, Captain, replied Helm Officer Jake Sampson. ETA 6 hours at stealth speed. Execute. As the Defiant slipped silently through space, Ethan retreated to his quarters. Once alone, he allowed himself a moment of doubt staring at the small hologram of Earth he kept beside his bed. Everything and everyone he had ever known was now under enemy control. The logical part of his mind knew that one ship, even one as advanced as the Defiant, couldn't hope to make a difference against the might of an interstellar empire. But humans had never been particularly logical when it came to fighting for their home. There was a soft chime at his door. Enter, he called. Lieutenant Garcia stepped inside holding a tablet. Captain, I've been analyzing the Zexian patrol patterns, and I found something interesting. She handed him the tablet. Every 32 hours, there's a gap in their coverage near Io. It's brief, just 17 minutes, but it's consistent. Ethan studied the data. A weakness in their formation? I think it's deliberate. They're using Io as a rendezvous point. If we position ourselves here, she indicated a spot on the map, we might be able to intercept their communications during the handoff. For the first time since hearing about Earth's fall, Ethan felt a spark of hope. Not much, just enough to keep going. Well done, Lieutenant. Update the navigation plan and brief Lieutenant Sampson. After Garcia left, Ethan looked once more at the Earth hologram before shutting it off. One ship against an empire seemed like madness. But sometimes, madness was all you had left. The USS Defiant approached Europa quietly, its phase shift drive humming at low power. Through the view screen, the icy moon glowed pale against the massive backdrop of Jupiter. Captain Ethan Mitchell leaned forward in his command chair, eyes fixed on the small research outpost barely visible on Europa's surface. Life signs? He asked. Lieutenant Garcia checked her sensors. Confirmed, sir. I'm reading 12 human biosignatures inside the main facility. And, she paused, rechecking her readings. 6 Zexian signatures as well. Security Chief Maya Bennett immediately went on alert. Could be prisoners or collaborators. Or neither, Ethan said. Scan for weapons fire. No energy weapon discharges detected, Garcia reported. But the Zexians are all clustered in the east wing, humans in the central hub. Looks like a standoff. Ethan made his decision quickly. Prep a rescue team. Maya, you'll lead. Take 6 security personnel. Alan, you go too. We'll need someone who can interpret any data they've gathered. Phase suit shields only. No heavy weapons that might breach the outpost's hull. Yes, sir, Bennett said, already heading for the elevator. Communications Officer Alan Wright looked less enthusiastic about the mission, but nodded obediently. I'll grab my data kit. As the team prepared, Chief Engineer Lisa Crawford spoke up from her station. Captain, I've been reviewing Dr. Frost's precursor data. If his findings are accurate, this technology operates on principles that violate what we understood about physics. It's not just advanced, it's fundamentally different. Different how? Ethan asked. Like comparing fire to electricity. Both provide energy, but they work in completely different ways. This tech, it doesn't just affect matter. It seems to affect the space between matter. Dr. Frost had joined them on the bridge and nodded along with Crawford's assessment. That's why we were studying it at Europa. The extreme conditions there, the radiation from Jupiter, the subsurface ocean, they created a perfect preservation environment. The artifact had been there for at least 50,000 years. Ethan absorbed this information silently. Then he turned to Lieutenant Commander Hudson. Paul, you have the bridge. Keep the ship dark, minimal power, stay in Europa's shadow. If anything goes wrong, your priority is to protect the ship. Don't wait for us. Hudson looked torn, but nodded. Understood, Captain. Good luck down there. 20 minutes later, Ethan stood with the rescue team in the shuttle bay, securing the seals on his phase suit. The suits were another experimental technology, lightweight armor that could bend light, around the wearer, providing partial invisibility and protection from energy weapons. The small shuttle descended through Europa's thin atmosphere, landing half a kilometer from the research outpost. As they approached on foot, the massive form of Jupiter filled half the sky, its swirling storms casting an eerie light across the icy landscape. Security breach in the east airlock, Bennett reported suddenly, checking her scanner. Someone's coming out. They ducked behind an ice formation, weapons ready. The airlock cycled open, and a single figure emerged, tall, thin, with the characteristic blue-gray skin and elongated head of a Zexian. But something was wrong. The alien moved erratically, glancing back at the facility in what seemed like fear. It's running from something, Alan whispered. Before they could decide how to respond, energy bolts blasted out from the facility, narrowly missing the fleeing Zexian. 3 more Zexians had emerged and were firing at the first one. They're fighting each other, Ethan realized. The fleeing Zexians spotted their group and froze. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then the alien slowly raised its hands in what was unmistakably a universal gesture of surrender. Don't shoot, it said in accented but understandable English. Please. Ethan made a split-second decision. Cover me, he ordered, then stepped out from behind cover, his own weapon trained on the alien. Who are you? What's happening here? My name is Nix, the Zexian replied. I'm a scientist like your people inside. We were working together before my colleagues arrived. More energy bolts struck nearby, sending up plumes of ice. The pursuing Zexians were getting closer. Working together on what? Ethan demanded. The artifact, the technology of the ancients. I came to warn your people, but now we're all trapped. Nix's large silver eyes blinked rapidly. They will kill me first, for betraying House Vecton. Then they will take your people for questioning. Please, we must help them. Ethan glanced at Bennett, who looked deeply skeptical. But they had come to rescue the humans in the facility, and they were running out of time. Maya, take half the team and circle around to the west entrance. Alan, stay with me. We're going in through the front with our new friend. He turned back to Nix. Any tricks? Any sign you're leading us into a trap and you're dead? Understood? Perfectly, Nix replied. With their unusual ally guiding them, Ethan's group reached the main airlock without being spotted. Inside, they found the facility in lockdown mode. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the narrow corridors. This way, Nix whispered, leading them toward the central hub. Your people barricaded themselves in the main lab. The other Zexians cut the power, but the lab has emergency batteries. They turned a corner and nearly ran into one of the enemy Zexians. Bennett's team had created a diversion on the other side of the facility, drawing most of the attention, but this one had stayed behind. The alien was larger than Nix, wearing what looked like military armor. It raised its weapon, but Ethan fired first. The phase pistols shot past straight through the Zexian shields as if they weren't there. Another benefit of the precursor-influenced technology the Defiant was testing. The alien fell without a sound. Their shields are calibrated to stop conventional energy weapons, Nix explained, sounding impressed. Your technology has already been adapted from the artifact. Some of it, Ethan confirmed cautiously. They reached the central lab, where Alan quickly bypassed the lockdown protocol. Inside, they found 11 scientists and 1 security guard, all looking exhausted and terrified. When they saw Nix, several reached for improvised weapons. "It's okay," Ethan said quickly. "He's with us. For now." A tall, thin man with a shock of white hair stepped forward. "Captain Mitchell, I'm Dr. Greg Ward, lead researcher. Thank God you came. We've been trapped here for days." "We're getting you out," Ethan promised. "But I need to know what was so important that the Zexians would fight each other over it." Dr. Ward glanced at Nix, then gestured to a sealed container in the center of the lab. "We found it 3 months ago before the invasion. A data crystal, perfectly preserved in the ice. It contains information about weapons, shields, drives, technology, more advanced than anything humanity or the Zexians have developed. House Vectan wants it," Nix added. "They led the invasion of your world specifically to find it. The other houses don't know yet what Vectan has discovered. If they did." The alien made a gesture that needed no translation. "Civil war." As Bennett's team reported that they had secured an escape route, Ethan studied the container and the small crystal inside. One tiny artifact had brought an alien empire to Earth's doorstep. Now it might be humanity's only hope. "Pack it up," he ordered. "We're taking everything. And Dr. Ward, you and your team just got new jobs on the Defiant." As they prepared to leave, Alan approached with a concerned expression. "Captain, I accessed their communications log. There's something else you need to know. The Zexians, they're not just occupying Earth. They're planning something worse." "What do you mean?" "A biological agent designed to alter human neurochemistry. Make us compliant. The researchers here discovered it in Zexian communications. That's why they were hiding." Ethan turned to Nix, who lowered his head. "It's true. House Vectan fears human resistance. The agent will not kill, but it will change your people. Make them easier to control." For a moment, fury threatened to overwhelm Ethan's judgment. Then he focused on what mattered. "Where is this agent now?" he asked, his voice deadly calm. "A research vessel," Nix replied. "In your Proxima Centauri system, being prepared for distribution on Earth within 20 days. Ethan activated his communicator. "Hudson, prepare for immediate extraction, and set a course for Proxima Centauri as soon as we're aboard." The fight to save Earth had just gotten more urgent, and more impossible. But now at least they weren't fighting alone. The trip to Proxima Centauri took 3 days. 3 days of planning, preparation, and growing tension aboard the USS Defiant. Captain Ethan Mitchell spent most of that time in the ship's laboratory with Dr. Greg Ward, Chief Engineer Lisa Crawford, and their unexpected Zexian ally, Nix. "The research vessel will be heavily guarded," Nix explained, pointing to a holographic display of a sleek alien ship. "House Vectan knows the value of the biological agent they're developing." "Tell me more about these houses," Ethan said. "You mentioned there are others besides Vectan." Nix nodded. 7 in total. For thousands of years they maintained a balance of power, but House Vectan has grown ambitious. They believe controlling humanity will give them the edge they need to dominate the other houses. "And you disagree with this plan?" Security Chief Maya Bennett asked, her voice making it clear she still didn't trust the alien. "I am a scientist, not a soldier," Nix replied. "The other houses don't know about the precursor technology or the biological weapon. If they did, they would oppose Vectan's actions. This conquest was not authorized by the full council." Indal. The engine room, Lisa Crawford worked around the clock integrating what they'd learned from the Europa artifact. The precursor technology operated on principles that seemed magical even to her, but slowly she was making progress. "It's like they found a way to exist slightly out of phase with normal space-time," she explained to Lieutenant Olivia Garcia, who had come to check on her progress. "The phase shift drive we were testing was just scratching the surface of what's possible." "Can you make it work for our weapons?" Garcia asked. Crawford nodded tiredly. "I think so. At least enough to give us an edge." By the time they reached Proxima Centauri, everyone was ready. The plan was simple but dangerous. Use the enhanced phase shift drive to approach undetected, board the research vessel, steal or destroy the biological agent, and escape before Zexian reinforcements arrived. "We'll need to split into 2 teams," Ethan told the strike force gathered in the shuttle bay. Maya, you'll lead Team Alpha to secure the samples. Alan, you'll go with Team Beta to download their research data. We need to know exactly what they've developed and how to counter it if necessary. Lieutenant Commander Paul Hudson approached Ethan privately before they boarded the shuttle. "This is a mistake, Captain," he said quietly. "We should be taking this information back to any surviving Earth resistance, not risking our only ship on a raid. If that biological agent reaches Earth, there won't be any resistance left to help," Ethan replied. "This is our only chance to stop it." Hudson didn't look convinced, but he nodded stiffly. "I'll keep the ship ready for immediate extraction." The modified phase shift drive worked better than they had hoped. The Defiant slipped past the Zexian patrols like a ghost, positioning itself behind a small moon near the research vessel. From there, they launched a single shuttle with the strike team aboard. The boarding was the tricky part. Nix had provided the codes to bypass the outer security systems, but once they were inside, they would have limited time before being discovered. Remember, standard Zexian protocol requires security check-ins every 15 minutes. Nix reminded them as they approached the airlock. "Once we're inside, we have 14 minutes before they realize something is wrong." The airlock cycled open silently. Team Alpha, led by Bennett, headed toward the ship's laboratory section. Team Beta, with Alan Wright and Nix, moved toward the command center to access the main computer. For the first 10 minutes, everything went according to plan. Using the phase suits, they moved through the ship like shadows, avoiding most of the Zexian crew. When they did encounter enemies, their phase-shifted weapons cut through Zexian shields as if they weren't there. In the laboratory section, Bennett's Ahor team found what they were looking for, a sealed containment unit holding dozens of vials filled with a glowing blue liquid. "Target secured," she reported through the comm. "But there's a problem. According to the logs, this is only a small portion of their supply. The rest has already been transferred to a military installation deeper in the system." In the command center, Alan and Nix faced their own challenges. As they downloaded the research data, a group of Zexian guards entered unexpectedly. "Hide," Nix whispered, pushing Alan behind a console just as the guards walked in. The Zexians spoke to each other in their native language, too fast for Alan to follow with his basic knowledge, but he could tell from their tone that something was wrong. They had noticed something out of place. One of the guards moved toward their hiding spot. Alan held his breath, finger on the trigger of his phase pistol. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared to life. They'd been discovered. "Team Alpha, Team Beta, abort mission." Ethan's voice came through the comm. "Get to the extraction point now." Bennett's team moved quickly, securing the samples they had found and fighting their way back toward the airlock. Alan and Nix were cut off from the direct route and had to find another way out. "There's a secondary airlock near the engine room," Nix said as they ran through the corridors, ducking enemy fire. "We can reach the shuttle from there." They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with 3 Zexian soldiers. Alan fired first, dropping one, but the others returned fire. A bolt of energy hit the wall beside them, causing a structural collapse. Metal beams crashed down, and Nix shoved Alan clear at the last second. When the dust settled, Alan found himself on one side of the debris and Nix trapped on the other, pinned under a fallen beam. "Go!" the alien scientist gasped. "Complete the mission." Alan hesitated for only a moment before rushing to help. "Not without you," he said, struggling to lift the heavy beam. "You saved my life. I'm not leaving you to die." Together, they managed to free Nix, but the alien had been badly injured. Alan helped him limp toward the airlock even as more Zexian troops closed in from behind. Meanwhile, Bennett's team had reached the primary airlock and was engaged in a fierce firefight with Zexian security forces. Captain Mitchell, who had joined the boarding party despite Hudson's objections, led the defense. "Where are Wright and the Zexian?" he shouted over the weapons fire. "No contact," Bennett replied, firing her phase rifle in precise bursts. "They must have been cut off." Ethan made a quick decision. "Get the samples to the shuttle, start the launch sequence, I'll find them." He fought his way deeper into the ship, following the trail of skirmishes left by Team Beta. When he finally found them, Alan was supporting a badly wounded Nix, with Zexian troops in close pursuit. "This way," Ethan called, providing covering fire as they limped toward him. They reached the airlock just as Bennett was preparing to close it. The shuttle was already under fire from Zexian defense systems. "Go, go, go," Ethan ordered as they piled inside. The shuttle broke away from the research vessel, engines straining as they pushed toward the hidden Defiant. Zexian patrol ships were already converging on their position, alerted by the security breach. "Hudson, we need immediate extraction," Ethan called over the comm. "We've got hostiles on our tail." "Copy that, Captain," Hudson replied. "Defiant is moving to intercept. Be advised we're detecting multiple Zexian warships entering the system." As the shuttle dodged enemy fire, Lisa Crawford's voice came through the comm. "Captain, I've been studying the data you transmitted. The precursor technology can be integrated with our shield systems, but it's risky. The power requirements might overload our grid." "Do it," Ethan ordered. "We'll need every advantage we can get." The Defiant appeared suddenly from behind the moon, its weapons blazing a path for the shuttle. As they approached the ship, a Zexian patrol vessel moved to intercept. "Brace for impact," the shuttle pilot called. They took a direct hit to their port engine, sending the shuttle into a spin. With emergency thrusters, they managed to stabilize just enough to make a hard crash landing in the Defiant's shuttle bay. As medical teams rushed to help the wounded, Ethan turned to Bennett. "The samples?" She held up a sealed container. "Secure, Captain. And the data?" Alan nodded weakly as medics tended to his injuries. "Got it all. But they know we were there. They'll be coming after us." Through the viewports, they could see more Zexian ships appearing. The Defiant was surrounded. "Captain to bridge," Ethan called, racing toward the elevator. "Prepare for emergency jump. We need to get out of here now." As the Defiant's engines powered up, Ethan looked back at the injured Nix being carried to the medical bay. One thing was certain: their war against the Zexian Empire had just begun in earnest. "Jump complete," Lieutenant Jake Sampson reported from the helm. "We're clear of the Proxima Centauri system." Captain Ethan Mitchell let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The Defiant had escaped, but just barely. Their hasty jump had taken them to an uncharted nebula, a cloud of gas and dust that would help hide them from Zexian sensors while they made repairs. "Damage report," he ordered. Chief Engineer Lisa Crawford's voice came through the comm, sounding exhausted. "Not good, Captain. The phase shift drive is operating at 38% capacity. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, contained but still critical, and the power grid is highly unstable after the integration of the precursor tech. How long until we're operational? At least 4 days for basic systems, a week for full combat readiness." Ethan rubbed his face. A week was too long. The Zexians would be hunting them, and Earth's clock was ticking. In the medical bay, Dr. Kevin Frost worked frantically to save Nix. The Zexians' biology was similar to human anatomy in some ways, but different enough to make treatment challenging. "Will he make it?" Alan Wright asked, standing nearby. Despite his own injuries, he had refused to leave Nix's side. "I think so," Frost replied. "His species has remarkable regenerative abilities, but he needs time to heal." Security Chief Maya Bennett entered the medical bay with a security team. "Captain wants the alien, secured once he's stable," she said flatly. "He saved my life," Alan protested. "He's on our side." "Maybe," Bennett replied. "Or maybe this was all part of some longer game. We still don't know why he turned against his own people." The argument might have escalated, but at that moment, an alarm blared through the ship. Ethan's voice came over the intercom. "All senior officers to the bridge now." When they arrived, they found the main view screen showing the disturbing results of their analysis of the biological samples and research data. Dr. Greg Ward from the Europa facility was explaining what they had discovered. "It's worse than we thought," he said grimly. "The agent doesn't just make humans compliant, it rewrites portions of our genetic code, making us—" He struggled to find the right words. "Compatible with Zexian biology." "Compatible how?" Ethan asked. "They want to harvest genetic material from humans," Ward explained. "Specific traits our species possesses that theirs lacks: adaptability, creativity, resistance to certain pathogens. They're trying to incorporate these traits into their own genome. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this new information. The Zexians weren't just conquerors, they were harvesters. There's more, Ward continued. According to the data Alan retrieved, the research vessel was only part of a larger operation. The main facility is on a planet called Vecta Prime, the homeworld of House Vecton. Lieutenant Commander Paul Hudson, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Captain, I need to speak with you privately. Ethan nodded, and they moved to his ready room adjacent to the bridge. As soon as the door closed, Hudson spoke. This has gone far enough, he said. We have valuable intelligence about their plans. Our duty is to return to Earth, find whatever resistance remains, and share what we've learned. The resistance won't stand a chance if this biological weapon is deployed, Ethan countered. And what chance do we have? Hudson demanded. One damaged. Ship against their homeworld. It's suicide, and you know it. Do you have a better plan, Commander? Hudson hesitated, then spoke firmly. Yes. We use the data we've gathered to develop a counteragent, something to protect humans from their biological weapon. We focus on defense, not a hopeless attack. Ethan considered this. Hudson wasn't wrong. Attacking Vecta Prime seemed impossible, but waiting, hiding, playing defense, that wasn't who he was. I'll consider it, he said finally. Let's see what options Crawford and Ward can give us. Over the next 2 days, as repairs continued, tension grew aboard the Defiant. The crew began to divide into 2 camps, those who supported Hudson's cautious approach and those who backed Ethan's more aggressive strategy. Heated arguments broke out in the mess hall and crew quarters. Meanwhile, in engineering, Lisa Crawford made a breakthrough. Working with the precursor technology, she had found a way to enhance the Defiant's weapon systems beyond anything they had imagined. The theory is sound, she explained to Ethan. By shifting our weapon slightly out of phase with normal spacetime, we can penetrate any conventional shield. Combined with the data crystal from Europa, we might be able to match the firepower of an entire Zexian battle group. Might? Ethan asked. Crawford grimaced. It's untested, and the power requirements are enormous. We'd be pushing our systems far beyond their design limits. What's the worst that could happen? Total system failure. The ship tears itself apart. We all die. Ethan smiled grimly. So, no different from facing a Zexian battle group with our regular weapons. In the medical bay, Nix had regained consciousness. Under guard, he spoke with Ethan and Dr. Frost. There is something you should know, the alien scientist said weakly. The reason House Vecton invaded your world so suddenly. They were afraid. Afraid? Of us? Ethan asked skeptically. Of what you might become, Nix clarified. When traces of precursor technology were discovered in your system, Vecton feared that if humans mastered it first, you would become an existential threat to Zexian dominance. So they attacked us preemptively, Ethan concluded. Yes. But they kept this discovery from the other houses. The invasion was not sanctioned by the full council. If the other houses knew, Ethan leaned forward. They might turn against House Vecton. Nix nodded slowly. The 7 houses maintain balance through strict rules of engagement. Unauthorized biological weapons, unsanctioned invasions, hidden precursor technology. These violations would not be tolerated. This new information gave Ethan an idea. Not a direct attack on Vecta Prime, but something more subtle. A way to turn the Zexians against each other. As he left the medical bay, alarm klaxons suddenly blared throughout the ship. He raced to the bridge to find chaos. Multiple Zexian vessels entering the nebula, Lieutenant Garcia reported. They've found us. How? Ethan demanded. The nebula should have hidden our signature. Unknown, sir, but they're converging on our position fast. Battle stations, prepare for evasive maneuvers. As the crew rushed to their posts, the division that had plagued them for days vanished. In the face of immediate danger, they were united. Once more, a single crew fighting for survival. Zexian cruiser bearing 180 Mark 42, Garcia called out. Energy weapons charging. Evasive pattern Delta, Ethan ordered. Divert emergency power to the phase shift drive. The Defiant lurched as Lieutenant Sampson executed a tight maneuver, diving deeper into the nebula's thick gas clouds. Energy beams from the Zexian cruiser cut through space where they had been moments before. "Sir?" Crawford's voice came over the comm. "The modifications to the weapon systems aren't ready. If we engage now, we don't have a choice," Ethan interrupted. "Do what you can." More Zexian ships appeared, surrounding them. The Defiant twisted and turned through the nebula, using the gas clouds for cover, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. "Direct hit to our port shield," an officer reported. "Shield integrity at 47%. Another blast rocked the ship. Systems failed across multiple decks. In engineering, Crawford watched in horror as power surged through the experimental systems she had installed. "The precursor integration is destabilizing," she shouted into her comm. "Captain, we need to shut it down or—" She never finished the sentence. A massive power surge tore through the ship as the precursor technology activated. All at once, the lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency power. On the bridge, Ethan watched as the view screen went dark. For a moment, he thought they were dead. Then the screens came back online, showing something impossible. The Zexian ships were frozen in place, caught in some kind of space-time distortion. "What just happened?" Ethan whispered. "The precursor tech," Garcia replied, staring at her readings in disbelief. "It created some kind of bubble in space-time. We're out of phase with normal space." "Can we move?" Garcia nodded slowly. "I think so, but the phase shift drive is critically damaged. We can make one more jump, maybe." Ethan looked at the frozen Zexian ships surrounding them. They had escaped, but at what cost? The Defiant was badly damaged, systems failing throughout the ship. Even if they wanted to run and hide, they couldn't go far. In that moment, Ethan made his decision. "Set course for Vecta Prime," he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Hudson stared at him in shock. "Captain, the ship is falling apart. We can't possibly—" "Exactly." Ethan cut him off. "They'd never expect us to go there, and right now unexpected is all we have left." As the crew prepared for what might be their final jump, Ethan looked around at their determined faces. Division had given way to unity in the face of overwhelming odds. One ship against an empire seemed impossible. But sometimes, impossible was all you had. The USS Defiant emerged from its final jump directly in orbit around Vecta Prime. The ship shuddered violently as systems failed across all decks. Emergency lights flickered, and warning alarms blared throughout the vessel. "Phase shift drive is completely offline," Chief Engineer Lisa Crawford reported from engineering, her voice barely audible over the sound of hissing steam and sparking circuits. "Main power at 27%, weapons at 40%. On the bridge, Captain Ethan Mitchell gripped his command chair as another tremor shook the ship. "Status of the Zexian defense grid?" "They haven't detected us yet," Lieutenant Olivia Garcia replied, surprised. "The precursor technology is still keeping us partially out of phase, but it won't last much longer." Ethan studied the tactical display. Dozens of Zexian warships orbited the planet, and hundreds more were docked at space stations. Below on the surface he could see the sprawling capital city of House Vectan, and in the center of it all was their target, the Grand Conclave. "Nix was right," Ethan said. "All 7 houses are gathered for their council meeting." It was the perfect moment, perhaps their only chance. If they could reveal House Vectan's unauthorized actions to the other houses, they might turn the Zexians against each other. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Hudson said quietly, "even if we succeed, we'll never make it out. The ship can't survive another jump." Ethan nodded grimly. "I know. That's why I'm leading the ground team myself." The plan was desperate but simple. A small team would use the last functioning shuttle to reach the surface. There, they would infiltrate the central transmission facility and broadcast the evidence of House Vectan's unauthorized biological weapons program to all 7 houses simultaneously. "Sir," Security Chief Maya Bennett protested, "as head of security I should—" You're coming with me, Ethan interrupted, along with Alan Wright and Nix. The rest of the crew stays aboard to keep the Defiant operational as long as possible. As they prepared for the mission, Dr. Kevin Frost pulled Ethan aside. The biological agent we captured, I've been studying it. It could be used as leverage. How? Modified correctly, it could target Zexian biology instead of human. A single vial could threaten their entire species. Ethan considered this for a moment, then shook his head. We're not them, Doctor. We don't use biological weapons even when backed into a corner. In the shuttle bay, the team made their final preparations. Nix, still weak from his injuries, provided detailed maps of the capital city. Their target was heavily guarded, but with the phase suits and their knowledge of Zexian protocols, they had a chance. When the Defiant is detected, you'll have minutes at most before they trace the shuttle's trajectory, Hudson warned. After that, we know the odds, Ethan replied. Just keep the ship in one piece long enough to broadcast our signal. Thus, descent to the surface was tense but uneventful. Using Nix's access codes, they landed near the transmission facility and moved quickly through the streets. Zexians walked past them, unaware of the invisible human team in their midst. At the facility entrance, they encountered their first real resistance, guards with sensors that could detect their phase suits. A brief firefight broke out. Bennett took a hit to her shoulder but kept moving. This way. Nix guided them through service corridors toward the main control room. Once inside, Alan can override the systems and broadcast to all houses. They reached the central control room only to find it occupied by a tall, imposing Zexian wearing ornate armor. The Vecton Archon, military leader of House Vecton and architect of Earth's invasion, stood before them. I've been expecting you, the Archon said calmly. Did you think we wouldn't notice your ship, human? Even with stolen precursor technology, you are predictable. Ethan raised his phase pistol, but the Archon moved with incredible speed, knocking it from his hand. Around them, hidden guards deactivated their cloaking shields. In orbit, the Defiant faced its own crisis. The Zexian defense grid had finally detected them, and warships converged on their position. They're targeting our main reactor, Garcia reported as the first volley struck the ship. Hudson made a quick decision. Divert all power to the transmitter. We need to stay operational just long enough to receive the captain's signal. On the surface, the battle in the control room was fierce. Bennett and Alan fought desperately against the guards while Ethan engaged the Archon directly. Nix worked frantically at the control panel, trying to activate the broadcast system. It's ready, Nix called. I just need the data crystal. Ethan, bleeding from several wounds, reached into his pocket and tossed the crystal to Nix. The Archon, realizing what was happening, lunged forward. Now, Ethan shouted. Nix inserted the crystal. The transmission went out to every Zexian ship, colony, and household. The evidence was irrefutable. House Vecton's unauthorized biological weapons, their secret invasion of Earth, their attempts to harvest human genetics, all in violation of the most sacred Zexian laws. In orbit, the Defiant captured the broadcast and amplified it using the last of its power to ensure every Zexian in the system received the message. The effect was immediate. The Zexian ships attacking the Defiant hesitated, then began turning their weapons on House Vecton vessels instead. The Empire was tearing itself apart from within. On the surface, the wounded Ethan looked up at the confused and angry Archon and smiled. You lost, he said simply. One human ship had faced the Empire, and against all odds, they had won.